So welcome to Scrapbook Live. I'm Megan Jacks. Today is October 31st, so happy Halloween. And today's layout, even though it is definitely the sample, is done with the hide and eek, the layout you can see here. I am going to be putting it together not using the Halloween, but I'm going to be sticking with some of the same techniques. So I kind of did the distressing of the paper strips to give that bandage look that kind of looks like a mummy wrap. And then we'll do the same thing, but I'm going to use the On the Mend collection because, again, you may find yourself wanting to have that same look, especially if somebody has broken a bone or other type of thing where they really have that bandage. When you need more than a Band-Aid, right? And you just need that bandage look to it. So, and then I'll talk a little bit more about how you could use this technique, even if you don't want to use like On the Mend or a Halloween theme, how you can even just use kind of this crisscross strips of paper to give you that layered look that you can tuck your mats into. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead here and jump over to my overhead screen and we will get started for today. I do see a question. I know Laura's got a question about Black Friday. We will talk a little bit about that here probably towards the end of the session. They did announce it today that it is coming on Monday, so that's pretty exciting and we'll have some details. All right, so here is the hide and eek version. I'll bring it up a little bit closer to the camera so you can see those paper bandages. And then what I did is I just tucked them in. So zigzagged the bandages down the strip here and then tucked in the photos and then just kind of layered it all together. There are definitely some inking things that you'll see. Yes, I know I'm not a huge fan of inking, but I did the inking that I can handle, which is where I don't have to get one of those brushes out. So for my On the Mend version, here's what I'm going to go with. I'm also going to use a white base. This is white cardstock, not bright white cardstock. So the reason I chose to use white cardstock versus bright white is a little bit of a thicker cardstock, and I knew I wanted to crumple the paper. The thicker the paper, the little more difficult it is to crumple. So by being able to use just the white, it's a little less, it's a slightly creamy undertone to it as compared to bright white. But bright white is that thicker cardstock, and I think regular white cardstock works best. So that's my base. Now, I knew, and I'd also use it for the bandages, the white bandages. So I needed something that was going to be my background paper here. I knew I needed that. And so I flipped through the On the Mend and I liked this one. It's not very crazy. It's a lot of repetitive patterns to it, just some words. I thought that would look really nice as my back piece, overall, where I have the eyeballs. And then I needed something to be able to come down to make that tall pillar that kind of holds my bandage piece. And I am going to be using this hearts paper. I could maybe swap it around and just use some red shimmer paper in there, but I think I'm going to use the red hearts. We'll see. I don't know that you'll really be able to see the hearts. May have to play around with that a little bit so that I can actually see the hearts if I want them to kind of come down the side of my paper. And I'll talk about how you can do that. Sometimes a pattern doesn't work. And so what do you do if your pattern doesn't work? How do you make it work the way you want it to work? There is a way to do that. For my piece here where I have the black, I use the black shimmer. I'm going to use brown shimmer instead. Brown just fits a little bit more in with this collection overall. I think there might be some black in it, but I really like the brown. It kind of goes with the beigey background. I am also going to be using this is called Rich Cocoa. This is one of the ink pads that Creative Memories released with part of their fall collection. And I think that's going to be just kind of carrying into the brown theme. When I did the Halloween, I definitely went with black. I have some random small black cat eye ink pad that I used and it worked fine. But for this one, I wanted to go ahead and show that you can definitely do this with these little ink pads from Creative Memories. You may have other ink pads that you use. So the inking that I'm using is literally just going to be taking this and inking around because that's about all I can handle for inking. But I need some additional colors. You can see in here, I have some pattern paper and I also have some solid that I'm going to use with this. So I'm going to be pulling in this teal color. This is actually from the Perfect Kitty Cat. It is kind of that islandy waters aqua color. And the reason I decided to go that route rather than the teal color that is with the on the men, there is a piece of teal and white stripe in there. The white stripe to me was just a little too contrasty. I wanted something a little more muted. So this is a little more tone on tone versus blue or the aqua color with the white stripe through it. So I decided I wanted to use a plaid, and this color really does work well. So if you are looking for additional things to go with the On the Mend, this is out of the matte pack. You'll see on the reverse is the matte out of the Perfect Kitty. And if I need it, the other color I'm going to be bringing in is some blue cardstock. I've got to figure out, I may have to make some alterations to how this all set up. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes the patterns just don't work. And so we're going to see when I start putting it together what really speaks to me. And then I do have some red shimmer paper because I have punched the Heartbeat Chain BMC. We're going to see about using something like that in there. So I've got some of that all ready to go as well. Or I punched one. I might need to punch more. We'll see. All right, so the first thing we're going to start off though is we need to make our bandages. We need to make those pieces. So I'm going to set some of this aside and we will go ahead and do that. Now in my directions, I do talk about cutting or tearing. I'm going to show you the first way I did it, which was I actually used the scoring blade, and I'll show you how I did the scoring blade. One of the things is I really didn't want that full torn look. What was really, really rough, I wanted a distressed edge. I wanted it to have some tear to it, but I didn't want that really uneven tearing that can happen when you do like just tearing or using the tearing tool. I wanted a little bit more of a distress, but you know, not too distressed. So I decided to use the scoring blade. And this is the time where if you have a really deep groove on your cutting mat, on your little thing here, if you have one of these that you have worn the heck out of, this is going to be where it's going to come in wonderful. Normally I would tell you don't score your paper on a piece that are on a groove in here that's really deep, because if you're working with designer paper, you could actually cut your paper with the scoring blade if you're working with a really deep groove on that the cutting mat. But here I'm okay with it. I'm not likely to cut my paper here, the cardstock, but I'm okay with a nice deep groove. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna use my scoring blade at 1 inch, or 1.5 inches, excuse me, 1.5. You need 4 to 5 of these strips that are 1.5 inches. Now, if you're working and you're gonna be doing this, I would probably give yourself a 3/4 of an inch, maybe a 1 inch start, because we're gonna have to pull away one side to give ourselves an edge there. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do 1 inch. I tried, and you can go a couple times here. We want a nice deep groove. And then I'm going to move it over, and I'm looking for where my score, see, I can see that shadow of my scoring. I'm going to pull that over to where it lines up at 1.5 inches. It's going to be hard to show you, but you can do that. You can also look at the bottom. I come here at the top, and there it is. There's my 1.5, and 1.5 is a rough measurement. If you want to do 1 inch, you want to do 2 inches, you want to do 1 3/4, you want to make them different sizes, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and do another, and I'll pass a couple times, and I think I can get one more out of this, but I'm going to switch around to the other side so I have something to hold with my left hand and bring it over to that 1.5 inch mark and score one more time. So now I've got some nice scores in there. Okay, I'm going to bend this back and bend this forward. I am really trying to weaken the paper between the scores, where the scoring line is. I'm trying to weaken the connection. So going back and forth, really just weakening those fibers. And it's okay if your paper gets a little bit beat up. Remember, we're going to crumple it up anyway, so you don't have to be super lovely and nice to your paper. You can be a little mean to it. Don't go crazy, but it's okay if it starts to look a little rough. It's okay. Now, depending on how you've done here, you can pretty much just come in and start to pull sideways. And you can see if it's going to pull in there, you can see I'm starting to get that distressed look. Now it's not super distressed, but it's there. You can also, if you want, you could tear. You could come in with a ruler, if I could find a ruler, and you could actually try to tear it if you want. I think that's what I did on my first. And depending on your preferred look, it tears pretty easy. This actually worked good. I think it worked better than my first time. But you can see I've got a distressed look. Well, come on. There we go. I want that distressed edge. And then I can come in and do the same, just pulling away or using my ruler. So those are things, the way to do it pretty much with the tools you should already have on hand. Now, some of you may have a distressing tool of some sort. This is the one from Creative Memories. I had it a few years ago. It's just this cute little thing. I think it could go on a keychain. Just cute little thing. All these little, I don't know, blades or whatever they are in here, metal pieces that you can actually distress your paper. So when you do that, all you need to do is come in with a piece of paper. You're just going to cut. I have to grab a new sheet of white cardstock, and I don't want bright white, I want white. You're just going to come in here with your blade, cut this to 1.5 inches, and then that you just take and run down and distress your edge. I am not sure which one is faster, which one's more satisfying. It probably depends on the look that you want. It depends on how distressed you want your pieces to be. On the Halloween layout, I feel like a mummy can have really distressed and kind of scraggly. His rags are really very distressed, right? He's back from the dead. He's not supposed to have these nice, clean bandages. Whereas if you're doing something for a medical layout, like a broken bone or so forth, you might want your bandages to be just not quite as distressed and crazy looking as those. So maybe you're going to go with your mummy wrap. You might actually do a full-on tear. But for your bandages for a broken bone, just coming in with the tearing like we showed there, just kind of pulling things apart, or the distressing tool works great. Now, the distressing tool does leave a lot of just kind of fibers around. I can just give I would normally give a quick puff of air out of my own body to move some of that away, but I think if I start blowing on anything, it might impact the microphone. I covered a microphone up with a piece of paper, and there we go. So next up, we need to ink. We need to ink our edges. And I will be completely honest with you, this is my tearing tool. And I was like, I think I've lost, yeah, this is my distressing tool versus my tearing, or just tearing it. They look pretty similar. This one has a little bit more of a rough edge that I can feel like it's raised. This just has kind of that you could tell the fibers have been broken, not really compressed and distressed. So just a little different look. I already have some that I've made with the distressing tool, so I'm going to stick with the distressing tool to make the rest of mine, or walk you through the rest of this demo so that all the pieces I use for my layout look the same. Next up is going to be inking. So I'm just going to grab my ink pad and then come in here and just ink the edges. This is pretty easy. It's pretty fundamental. It's not difficult. I don't think this is messy. I'm not a messy phobe. I don't mind messes. I just don't necessarily like ink messes. I was that person when it came to paints for my kids. Instead of giving them watercolor paint, I bought them the daubers, the daubers from bingo daubers. They had that out there for a while. That was a thing you could do. And they were just so much easier. They got messy stuff at preschool and things like that. But at home, I was like, oh dear, this is a little crazy. So there we go. We've inked the edges. You can see I've got that brown ink on there. Now the next step, and here's what I will tell you. When I did my When I did my Halloween ones, you can see I do have some additional black ink in on the main areas of the strips. And that was because the style of ink that I was using, I used this cat eye. It's a pigment brush or pigment ink from stamping. I don't know if you guys are stampers, remember this brand. I don't even know if it's still made. This stuff takes forever to dry. It's not a fast drying ink. So I basically put it on, crumpled up my paper, and did get a little bit of ink on my hands, which then just transferred as the crumpled pieces even rubbed in on itself. So that worked out just fine. It looked great for my mummy. Now for my other ones, I didn't necessarily want these pieces to have a lot of that brown ink transferred. So what I'm saying is give your ink a chance to dry before you start crumpling. So I've already had one that has been drying for a while. You can see I've got ink on the edges, and I'm going to go ahead and crumple this. You're going to want to crumple it probably at least 2 times, maybe 3. So the first thing you're going to do is literally just wad it up. Just wad it up. Give it some folds. And then you'll unfold it. And we're going to admire how crumpled it looks. Oh, so lovely. Let's crumple it again. And our goal is to crumple it in ways that we haven't crumpled it already, to give it more crumplies. It's cardstock. It's not like you can like wad it up in this tiny little piece. It has some bulk to it. So the more you crumple it up, and you may find you have areas that don't have a lot of crumple to them, and you can just kind of hand crumple those. Instead of doing it in a ball, maybe just come in little sections. And so this is basically like 3 times I've crumpled this particular piece. And then you smooth it back out. Got a couple areas I think that are a little bit more, there we go. It's all crumpled. Now this piece that I just made, it should be dry. It's a different type of ink. So it should be dry. Linda's asking if you could use a marker. Yes, you could probably come in with a marker. I would say like for brown, I have the dual tip pen. So I would probably come in with the bolder end. If you have the dual tip, or I have the dot pen, I guess that is. If you have the dual tip journal pens, you could probably come in with your bold and try that. And I am just doing this last piece. You're going to want at least 4 pieces, maybe 5. It depends on how much you overlap and how much you want that background to show through. On my sample here, you can definitely see I have some of the black still popping through, but you could cover the whole thing up. You've got some nice, that's why we inked the edges. That gives that a little bit of definition between those pieces. One of the things I liked that I think would be a good possibility too is Creative Memories as part of this upcoming collection, the winter collection. They're giving us more of a gray ink, which I think is nice. So if you don't quite want black, but you want some definition, you will have that mid-tone to go with that gray, which will be a really nice option. Because sometimes you just need a little bit of definition, but not as much as black or the brown will give you. So here we go. That one looks good. And if it rips, see, I have a rip. No big deal. No big deal. Bandages aren't perfect. Okay. Those are all done. Now, it's time to think about putting our bandages on our piece of base paper. Not like the base layout, but that strip. So we're going to go ahead and cut ourselves a 5 by 12 inch piece of paper. I'm going to be using the brown shimmer. Love the brown shimmer. Anytime I can use a shimmer, I am all over it. So here we go. So now it's time. This is where we're going to start layering our pieces in. We are going to start at the top and we are going to layer down. One of the things I want to talk about here is I did do I wanted to show you a little bit of an alternative. What you could do is if you don't want to crumple, if you're doing something that you want to have, and you're not necessarily worried about mimicking bandages, you just want to have this look, you could definitely come in and do something along this lines. I'm going to pretend, and I'm just going to start building this one. I am doing ink on the bottom edge. This is the top edge. I'm doing ink on the bottom. I'm going to layer this on. When I get to my piece here, I want my longer scissors, not my micro scissors. I'm going to cut it off. I'm not worried about having it super flush. I'll come back and clean it up later. I'm just doing a rough cut, getting the bulk, and then I can come in here and layer more. I'm going to use Repo again. And I did that wrong because remember, I only want to put the adhesive on the bottom edge. The bottom edge. And the reason I want to do that is because by leaving the top edge open, I can slide in a photo or a mat or whatever are details. If I want to have other little things in here, I can slide those in. If I put adhesive down on all of them, I could probably lift it up with my multi-purpose tool, but it's a little bit easier if you just do the bottom edge. You could probably come in with some tape chips if you wanted to add, get those fully adhered later. So you can see I could just continue to build this down with the heartbeat or just strips of paper. You could come in here with any of your border designs. You could use borders themselves. You could use lots of things you could do. Just zigzag your way down the page and then you have a nice place to start tucking in your photos. So I'm going to pull this off, set those to the side, and we're going to come in with our bandages. So I am going to use Repo adhesive. I will probably be a little liberal with this. I'm going to put a lot on and I'm going to just start this. It doesn't matter too much what direction you go. You should be able to get 2 out of each piece, 2 strips across your 5-inch with each piece. If you want to cover completely, you are probably going to need 5 total strips. If you're not so concerned about covering completely, you can get away with 4. And what's nice is if you find yourself going, you're like, oh my gosh, I need another bandage, you can just make another piece. It's just white cardstock. How you can check is what I'm looking for here is I have passed the 6-inch mark. So I've used 2, I have gone more than halfway. That tells me I could either make some adjustments. If I want to have maybe a little bit less, maybe I'm gonna come overlap a little bit more. I can make some modifications to that first half and say, okay, that's great. Now I have to come in with my 2 other pieces and do the bottom half. Just zigzagging my way through. And the last piece gets put on. So there we go. There's my zigzags, and I have plenty of space that I'll be able to, wherever I want, I'll be able to come in and put my photos in. Once I made the determination where the photos are gonna go, I can come back in and I can use tape chips if I want to tuck those under, or I could lift them up a little bit. I mean, the paper's already folded and distressed. It's no big deal if you bend it back, put some adhesive down and tuck it and push it into place. Your paper's already folded and distressed. It doesn't matter if you work it over a little bit more. So now it's time to clean up our edges. And I'm just gonna go ahead and use my trimmer for this. I am looking to find where my brown base piece of shimmer paper is, and I'm lining that up with my cut line on my trimmer. And I'll clean cut it. Now, after I clean cut, I am gonna wanna come back with my inking and I'm gonna wanna ink those edges that I've cut. If you have happened to have used a lighter base, or if you used a piece of a designer paper here that has a white core instead of, like I've used a dark shimmer paper here, so I don't need to ink that edge. But if you did, you would want to ink that edge as well. You maybe would have inked it even before you got started putting your bandages on. But now I'm going to come in with my ink and I'm just going to go real quick and ink these. We just want them, all the edges on our bandages to have that inking. Okay, so that piece is kind of done. Let's add, in my directions, I tell you to go ahead and build, you put this all together and then you put your background piece in, you put this orange piece on, roughly, what did I say, about an inch from the left edge. You put the orange piece on and then you put your, this piece would go on top of that. But I mentioned before, what do you do when you have a pattern paper that you want to use? I mean, here I just had a piece of orange shimmer paper, so it didn't matter. I wasn't worried about a pattern. I just put my orange shimmer paper on, center this, no big deal. But look at this. If I put on my brown, this pattern, am I gonna see the heart? Am I not gonna see the heart? I mean, I could show this here and it does look, maybe I could cut it where I'd see a partial heart, but I really kind of want to see a full heart going on each side, which you can kind of see here. I might get lucky, right? I might get lucky, but let me show you how to guarantee it. So I want to make sure I have a full strip of hearts and I want to use the heart that starts at the top of the page. So I'm going to cut right along this edge here to get rid of this half heart. I'm going to basically do the left edge where I want to show my pattern. I'm going to create my edge that's going to go on the left edge over here. You can use your sight guides if you're looking to see, if you want to know how this is going to work. I'm going to do that and go ahead and cut all the way down. So this is what I can see here. I want this is what's going to show this row of hearts is going to be on the left side, just like this. So I have the option, I could just cut my strip of paper. I could just cut a single strip and I could put it on my paper and basically line it up right next to my piece. I would mount this piece to my background, come in with this single strip and abut it right next to it. But I'm going to make it a little wider. I'm going to tuck it underneath. At this point, it doesn't matter. I just need to have it wide enough that I could put some adhesive on and adhere it to the back of my paper. So I'm going to cut it about 3/4 of an inch. Actually, I'm going to line it up to prepare myself. No, I have to cut the other one from the other side. So let's do this. It doesn't matter. We're going to do it at 3/4 of an inch. That's going to be enough that I'll be able to put some adhesive on there. Now what I need to do is kind of repeat the same concept. And I can do this probably by coming over here. I need this strip so I can put my adhesive along this side, and this set of hearts right here is what's going to be on the right edge. So this is how you just kind of line it up. You just work with your trimmer, work with your paper, and cut small pieces. And then you'll work with those small pieces instead of putting one whole piece behind. I'm going to put 2 smaller pieces. So I'll mount this on there. I think I am going to ink the outside edge of these. This is on my mummy layout. I didn't necessarily ink other pieces because they're going against a black background. My piece here was black. It's dark. It's got nice contrast between everything. The piece I'm using for my base layout here is a little bit more mid-tone. By inking the edge, I'll have just that little bit of pop between the two. So that's what I'm going to do. I really appreciate you guys coming in and telling me where you're watching from. So fun. So Jill's asking, would it be easier to cut from the other side? You're going to cut from whichever side makes it easy for you, whichever one logic works for you. You may need to cut it from the other side. You may just, whichever one makes the most sense. And I'm just giving a nice inking to that. And I'll do the other piece. You could definitely use your journal pen for this. I would use the bold side of it. The ink pads are a little bit faster. So if you find yourself using your journal pens a lot to do that, you might consider some of the basic colors of ink pads. All right, now let's go ahead. I'm going to run some adhesive. I think I can use my mini runner on this side. This is my left or my right edge piece. So I'm going to put this on, and I'm putting it on upside down. Double check the way you've started it to lift my mummy or the wrappings a little bit so I can make sure I'm putting this on straight. That was the part I would say that was a little difficult, making sure that I had it centered on that orange. And you kind of just hope for the best, I guess. So you can see I have those hearts running down the side. And I'll do the same thing over here. I could actually use my regular adhesive. I have a little bit of a wider, or repo adhesive in this case. I have a little bit of a wider piece. And I'm going to adhere this on. Okay, so now we've got kind of that whole firm pressure to get all those pieces to stay together. That section, that piece has been built. You can see that we've got the strips on the back. Probably the easiest way, and a paper saver too, especially when you're working with pattern paper and you don't necessarily want to tie up a lot of it in the various layers. So now let's start building our base page itself, the actual layout. I mentioned I'm going to be using a piece of white cardstock. I'm going to quickly, hopefully quickly here, ink my edges. I like to ink the edges when I've got nothing else on my layout, simply because then, one, if on the odd chance that I mess up, I mean, ink's kind of permanent, right? I mean, you can cover up a lot of details and you can make it work, but if you really mess it up, you've got some flexibility there. So I'm going to come in, ink the edges. Totally optional. It is up to you what you like. I don't normally ink the edges on my paper. I just want to show, I guess, the technique. Can't even really see it on camera. Then the one thing I do want to do before we get too farther in here, I'm going to take my dual tip, my dot pen. I'm going to use the thin end. So if you have the brown dual tip journal pen, any kind of a finer end. For this particular application, I think I prefer the journal or the dot tip pen, the narrow end of it, as compared to the micro tip. I just prefer to have a little bit more of a bolder look to it. And I'm just going to come in with whatever kind of edging detail you want to do. If you want to do dashes, if you want to do squiggles, if you want to not do anything, that's fine. I'm going to come in with what I call just very loose squiggly waves. It's just, it's meant to be not straight is the big thing there. And when I do this, I'm going to go, I'm sticking kind of close to the outside edge. I'm keeping that 1/4 inch margin. I'm probably about 1/8 of an inch roughly. And it just kind of wavers. I let my hand just naturally waver, squiggle, move around. I'm not worried about straight. The harder you try to make it straight, the more obvious it is when it's not. If you want it to be straight, use a ruler. You could, if you really wanted to, you could come in with your, you could try scoring a line and following the score line with your pen if you want more of a straight line. I have in the past used the perforating blade for things and then basically dashed in each one of the perforations. So that's something that you can do. So here, it's not about being straight. It's about having a very unsteady hand throughout. It's a deliberate unsteady. Okay, so now I need to go ahead and trim down this piece. This is my base piece, or my background. And I need this to cut down to, where do I have the measurement? 11 1/4 inch. 11 1/4 inch. I'm gonna cut off 3/4 of an inch from two sides. And this one I definitely need to make sure I put on right side up because kind of essential that you can read it. Now, again, I mentioned I've got a lighter tone paper going against my white background. Now, here's the thing. To me, and this is where I struggle a little bit with inking. I don't know how you guys tell me how you feel about it. Once you start inking elements that you can, especially when you can notice those elements, that I feel like you need to ink as much of the different pieces as you can. I got away with it a little bit by not doing a lot of elements. Like I went back literally and looked at this later thinking I really probably should have inked my avocado mats, and even coming in here and inked these 4-inch mats. So I'm curious to know how you guys feel about it when you, for those of you who do ink, do you start inking all of the elements? I'm gonna ink this because I feel like it needs to be inked. And I'm doing literally just the edge. I'm not coming on to the front of the paper, at least deliberately. I know there are ways that you could do it. I could have used the brushes. I know there's some daubers that people use that allow you a little bit of some control between the brushes and the daubers. You can bring some of that ink forward to the surface of the paper and not just the edge. But I am just doing the edge. It is not very noticeable, but it's a detail. It is a little detail. And Bobby's like, I ink it all. Yeah, Dottie's saying the same thing. If they ink one thing, you continue on there. And then Linda's kind of in my camp. She's like, it's just another reason not to ink. And I admit, I will tell you that is a struggle for me because here's what I struggle with. And you guys can, again, tell me what you think. How do I ink the edges of this border? I mean, I've inked these, but I'm talking about the border itself. This one actually may not be that terrible to try to do, but there's some of these borders, I can't even imagine trying to ink those. Just preference. I guess I could play around with it a little bit more, but once I have to dig out a lot of things, like the various mats and the baby wipes and the things to keep things clean, I mean, you've kind of like I'm not to sign anything. It's just going to be a thumbprint. Because that's what's gonna end up. I will have inked covered hands and thumbprints and fingerprints all over my pieces. Okay, it's time to put this piece on. Use some adhesive. So Jenny, I like this. Jenny's saying her age-old rule, there's no rules in scrapbooking. She inks what she wants. And I can appreciate that. And maybe I need to dive into that a little bit more and give myself the thing where it doesn't, there's going to be maybe some little things like that there's pluses and minuses, that if inking can bring enough to the layout, even if you can't absolutely ink everything, but that's still okay. Here we go, which is going to be kind of the case for this layout. Next up, this is going to sit on there. So let me go ahead. I'm going to put some adhesive on the back side of this. And it's going to sit about 1 inch. It's to your discretion. I think I said 1 inch, but I feel like I'm actually closer to 3/4. Whatever your heart wants. It's like seasoning whatever you're cooking for dinner tonight. When you add your salt and pepper, you do what your heart desires. So there we go. Now, I want to do some mats here. I could not, here in this particular layout, I was able to use this kind of checkerboard pattern behind and give that nice a diamond look to it. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to be able to do that for this layout. I'm going to start off, I want to use this paper. This is from the Perfect Kitty Cat. It's the matte paper. I have an 8x12 section here, so I need 4 4-inch mats. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and cut. I'm going to cut 4 4-inch pieces. I know that I will use those in some way, shape, or form on this layout. You can adjust the size of the mats for whatever works best with your photos. In this particular case, the squares sit in here super, super well. That's one reason. But I could come down here. I could put a taller photo here for sure. I could come in here for sure with a 4x5. So be 4 wide, 5 tall. No problem. I can do that. I could come over here and I could also come in with 1 square photo here and 1 taller piece here. And I may actually do that. Instead of coming in on the diagonal with the squares, I think, well, let me try. I'm going to try one thing because my only other thought was bringing in the blue. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to like it, but I'm going to try it. It's cardstock, 4x4. I would, if this doesn't work out, these go into my blue scraps. They go up to my cutting machine, my little cuddle bug. I get letters out of these. So let's just see what it looks like. I probably should have looked in my scrap bin to begin with. Oh, actually, I do kind of like the blue. I wasn't sure. I was really torn on that, but I guess I don't mind it. I need one more. Now, I kind of wish I had done blue as my underpiece here instead of the brown, but it is what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and come in here with another, I'll stick with squares. If you don't know what you're doing here, if you don't know what size photos you have, pick out your paper that you're going to use for a mat and just keep it with it. I could have just kept my 8x12 piece with this layout, knowing it's set aside for mats when I'm ready to add mats for this layout, because knock on wood, nobody's broken a bone in my family. So I don't quite need it yet. We'll see. But I'm going to go ahead and cut mine to a square. I just need one more. I do have this longer section left. One, two, three. Oh, come on. Where did the other one go? My goodness, ladies, I tell ya, I've cut 3. Oh, it's stuck to the bottom of my, okay. Now, again, I need to ink those pieces. I do, but I'm not going to ink them right now, simply because time, right? But I want to talk about some details. So this is where in my original layout, I came in and I added, clustering some things in here. I actually have 4 clusters on here, but whatever. I thought those were cute. And then I've got the little cluster and I pulled in the border. I thought, look at that. Those cute little zombie hands poking out of the ground. Hilarious. So I did that here and up here. And I want to do something similar, I think, with heartbeat chain. So I could come in like such. Now, this is where maybe I would have considered, I mean, heartbeat chain, you feel like it's definitely kind of has to be red just because I'm going to adhere this on. Stickers were a little bit easier. There are other borders within the On the Mend collection. If you have, there's some really super cute layered borders, but I feel like I've already got enough going on in this layout that I'm not too worried about. And I don't know that I necessarily need to follow my bandages. Like I don't need to go down the middle because I don't want my borders are both kind of, this whole thing's tilted. If I put it up here on this one, it's going to tilt the same way. I think I'm actually just going to come across like that. You do what makes your heart content. And then it would be coming in with some of stickers or other such details to finish off the pieces. I think I would maybe trim one more. Let me pull this one off. Add some more adhesive though, so it sticks. And come in like, well, something along these lines. And as I mentioned before, what I need to do here is I need to come in and I need to add more adhesive. If you have the crafting adhesive, that would work well too. It's extra sticky. You know it's going to hold everything in place. I just don't want to add adhesive on the places where I'm tucking my photos in. If you want to use smaller, I probably could have come in with some 3x4s or 2x2s. But all in all, this is kind of where we're headed with it. I've got some additional details to add in, but that's kind of where we're going with this. So yeah, the comments about the breakages, it's kind of funny. I do feel lucky, but about the lack of breaking, knock on wood. We do jokingly call Cody our money pit. We say that, and I truly mean in a loving manner, from the standpoint, if there has been the little things in a child, like everything kind of just fell on him. So kind of what you're talking about there, Kristen, about, like, what is it about the youngest child? And I think that is a little bit there. What's going on is we have the youngest kid coming in and just, I feel like he's done everything. He's had to have a couple surgeries. He had these weird teeth things that we had to have, like he had to have oral surgery to have these things removed. Bless his heart with his dyslexia and all the things that we've had to navigate in that regard. So there's just been all of these little things that have been sprinkled on him, and they make him special and wonderful and give us delightfully wonderful stories. And I am thankful in some ways that it was our youngest child, because if that happens, all these things pile on with your first one, you're navigating all of those roads without any experience. And while we have navigated a lot of roads with Cody that we didn't navigate, so that we're paving them for the first time with him, we have a little bit of confidence and assurance that we did okay with our older kids. So what we're doing with Cody, it's got to be okay. I mean, he's happy, he's healthy. We've just been writing checks to a lot of people for various things. So, the kids, we thought going to college was expensive. There's been some parts with Cody that have been, thank goodness for being a little further along in our careers, right? Those things. So yeah, I mean, different ideas for using this layout, this concept with the overlapping strips. There are some great ideas to do there. Jessica brought up the idea of like burlap strips, using some of the barbed wire in there for your cowboy theme. It's all going to be, kind of what does your, what works for you and what goes with your layout. But don't be afraid to try the overlapping concept with tucking your photos in there. You don't have to distress the paper. You could just have it be strips. You could use the borders. So where just was talking about using strips of paper, you could just come in with those barbed wires and you could layer that on there and tuck your photos in that way. So some of our thinner chain ones, you could just use those, tuck it in there, and then tuck in your photos behind there. You just want to make sure you're popping it a color that's going to stand out against any type of photo that's going to be behind it. So yeah, it's funny, you guys, you sharing your story with your kids, and yeah, Linda's talking about, when the first one comes along with their various challenges, and then you're kind of surprised you had a second one at all. And I feel that way sometimes about Cody, with all of the delightful things that he's thrown at us. He was a tough baby. Bless his heart. He was a tough baby. I think there were some aspects of him being a tough baby was because we had older children that when you have no other children and a baby's crying all night, that's terrible, and it's emotionally gut-wrenching, but you're not trying to mitigate it because you have two other children trying to go to school the next day. You're trying, so some of the stresses that were layered on with him were also because we had the older kids. And if there was ever a child who should have had a sibling his own age, it is Cody. That kid has a lot of energy. So we're over here in camp. Oh my God. Like, what? You want to go swimming and play? Oh, we should have had a sibling for you, but way too late for that. And it was not happening even at that initial time when he was born. We're like, oh, we're done. Absolutely done. All right. So it's always a pleasure to scrapbook with you guys on Fridays. I will be back next week with another project. I'm not sure what. Black Friday starts on Monday. If you guys didn't know, it's kind of crazy to be talking about that, but it is, everything's coming sooner and sooner, pretty much as soon as Halloween's done. Christmas is already going up places. So it's definitely, it's just kind of the time of year, I guess. But it's a great chance. There is some new product coming out. There is the Winter Bliss collection. It's the new winter collection. We always get a winter collection in November. And then there are 3 bundles to choose from your the Black Friday. There is Santa's Workshop, which looks adorable. And then there is a Star of Wonder, which is going to be great if you belong to a church or you are really feeling the Holy Spirit with the Christmas season, and you do a lot of stuff centered around that. This is a beautiful, gorgeous collection from what I saw of those that in there. They have some beautiful nativity things and all about that stuff. So definitely something to consider there. And then you guys remember Winter Frolic from a few years ago? Now, Tessa and I kind of latched onto that as our name of our summer scrap, our winter scrap challenge. We call it Winter Frolic. They have a new version of it as one of these promo bundles called Glacier Frolic, but it has the purples and the greens and the colors in there that were so fun for Winter Frolic, and the most adorable penguin border punch. So 3 choices. It's going to be really hard to make up your mind. This is a great time to stock up on all the essentials, everything you're going to need to go into the full scrapbooking season, which in some ways feels like it launches right after Christmas. We go into scrapbooking season. We're done with the holidays. We've taken a ton of photos, gotten all these wonderful things that we want to come back and start getting those memories all put into albums. And there's going to be some great products here to do that. So Kim's asking, when are the collections coming out? Winter Bliss is coming out on Monday. It is a brand new collection. You can just buy that one outright. It's the winter collection. There is an inking bundle as well. 3 ink colors, 3 brushes, and you can get the stencil. If you want the brushes, you have to get the whole kit. If you want just the inks, you can buy just the ink pads. And then there was a card kit. There's another thing, and another product. So there's some new product coming on Monday. But Monday starts the Black Friday promos, and there's those 3 bundles that I mentioned that you can earn. For those in the US, you would spend more than every $150 you spend, you can pick out one of the promo bundles. The Santa's Workshop, the Star of Wonder, and Glacier Frolic will be the thing. And I showed them on my Facebook page. I'm not sure if Laura's still on here. She mentioned she had a challenge. I was difficult. Facebook wasn't playing nice. I shared them in both my Facebook page and in the Scrapbooking with Megan group, so you have a chance to check them out there. And then if you're on my email list for marketing, you will get an email from me on Sunday that'll have all the full details. But we'll get all of the things shared. So Kim's like, I have a lot of stuff in my cart right now. Good. You guys, you can start putting some of those essentials, things you've maybe held off on, refills, an album cover. There are 3 album covers that coordinate with the Black Friday promo. So they're adorable. I really do like them. The Star of Wonder one to me is really pretty. And I think that's gorgeous. So Annette is asking, what's the dollar amount for Australia? I am not 100% sure. It's the $150 mark for US, which is our standard. So probably whatever you had to order and able to get the July carry-all bundle promo, it's going to be that same dollar amount. I want to say it's something like $225 if you're in Australia, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But it is our pretty standard price point to earn those promos. All right. That's what I've got for you guys. Thanks for joining me today. I will be back next week, as I mentioned. After that, I do need to take 1 week off. I will be in Pennsylvania at Color Wars. A few of you, well, there might be more of you. A few of you are going to be on my team, and there might be more of you that are there. I don't know who's all coming. Emily has her list. There's like 100 people there. It's going to be pretty fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I'll be back and riding out the rest of this year. Definitely through November, and we'll see what December brings in terms of Scrapbook Life. So, all right, guys, take care. I will see you all soon. Thanks so much for joining me today. I truly appreciate it.